Right, today I'm in Essex with someone that I knew for years as the scourge of the on-course betting ring, Dean Valentine. Thanks for agreeing to do this, Dean. Haven't seen you much on course recently. How would you describe your occupation these days?
Still a little scourge, still a scallywag, but just play the off-course market now, in the shops, etc., with the firms. Would consider myself a professional punter. No secret. I like to try and keep my liabilities as least as possible. If I can turn a 2-to-1 chance into a 10-to-1 chance, I'll do that all day long. You can't beat the numbers at the end of the day.
So you're a professional punter now, Dean. You can't just suddenly become one. How did your association with the game start in the beginning?
I met a guy when I was 17 and I was on holiday in Gran Canaria, and he was associated with the Ray firm. If anyone remembers the Ray firm, Sid Sweeney was the governor, and the chap I met was Colin Hill, and he had a share with the Ray firm, and he used to get all the meetings that Sid didn't want to go to. And when I met him in Gran Canaria, and we become good friends, and he invited me to the races, and that's where it all began.
So that was your first job with a bookie?
Yeah. I remember him saying to me, would you like to stand on the bag and give out change? Well, I thought, wow, this is for me. Thought I was Jack the Lad, you know what I mean? So that was it. And then I slowly, was fascinated by the tic-tac and asked questions, and then started going with the Ray firm on a regular basis.
Now, if anybody scours the internet and Googles you, TV documentary comes up with you and another bookie I know, Jimmy Davis, and you both look alarmingly fresh-faced at a dog track, and you were tic-tacking and quite good at it, if Jimmy's to be believed. So what do you remember about that little escapade?
I think that come about, I was working for Jimmy one day at Walthamstow. I was in the main ring, and some guys I think they was at university, and they had to make a film. Anyway, they come to me and said, look, explain what they was doing. They said, we've been watching you for a few meetings. Would you mind if we made a film about tic-tac? So being a young man and looking for the limelight, may I add, I'm not looking for limelight now. Nice and quiet, under the radar, and yeah, that was how that film come about. And then they literally followed me around for a week, and I seem to remember, if there was all those in that particular university, all the other students also made a film, and I think the best one was going to be on Channel 4. Hence I scuppered that. I ruined that for them. So but it was interesting. It made me realise, don't believe too much what you see on the telly.
Right, David. In your early days, was dog racing a bigger part of your bookmaking sort of work than horse racing, or was it pretty much the same? Or how big a part was dog racing to you?
Well, we was just, Alice and I had not long had our first child, so it was a case of having to do the two. And but the racing was my main wages. I've never been interested in punting dogs at all. Basically the horses is the mainstay of the family, really.
Right, so you haven't got any strong opinions about the way dog racing has gone down the pan recently?
Not really, Simon. No, I'm pretty, people, well, if they're at all interested, I think people will be very surprised how little notice I do take of anything, really. You know what I mean? I'm in my own little world, in my own little bubble, and my days of rucking with bookmakers at the races are sort of long gone. You know what I mean? I just sort of do my own thing, and that's it, basically.
When I when I first sort of become aware of you, I think you were working on the floor for Tony Sniles, Bob Stock, and you were doing pretty well for yourself, but you were still working on the floor. How come you carried on doing that?
Because they're just a lovely family, and I will be forever in their debt for the chance they give me.
So how long did you work with Tony?
Like Tony's dad, Jim, I worked with the firm for 20 years, and fantastic, lovely family. You know, you go through life, you meet people, and you always look to people when you're younger thinking, I want to be like them. And as a family, you know, I always look to them and think, that'd do me. You know, Jim was obviously, well, I presume he was a very wealthy man, but it's so level-headed.
So you mentioned you sort of looked at the people. Who were the on-course bookies and maybe punters that impressed you in those early days when you first got going?
The light bulb, Johnny Lights, he was one of my heroes. Dudley Roberts, they was just great characters, you know, as well. You know, it was they knew how to chip you when you lost. You know what I mean? They wasn't too impressed when you won, but if you lost, they couldn't wait to let you know. Fletcher, Mickey Fletcher, the asparagus kid. But it was, you know, like everyone says, I suppose we're the characters now, but in them days it just seemed so many characters, and it has changed, isn't it? It has changed. Even Barry Dennis, he was a character. Couldn't bear the man. However, what a family man. A true family man. He'd done it all for his wife and kids. And listen, it takes all sorts of how you get it, but he managed to get it.
Now that must be a bit tricky when you become a professional punter and you're making your living off of these people that you actually like and admire. How does that sit with you when you're taking money off them?
Simon, it wasn't always taking money off of them. There was plenty of time. They only remember the times you took the money off of them. You know, I can remember one day I had a bet with Barry Dennis, 66 to 1 chance at Newmarket, 66 to 1. Peter, I suppose people are well aware I'd sort of get my card marked to certain people in this world. I have a good insight to which way the market's going, but I'm privy to that information. Doesn't always work, but I remember I'd done it with a 66 to 1 chance at Newmarket. The bollocking I got. But listen, I don't put the prices up. You know what I mean? But anyway, Barry, thanks, but I wish you well.
Was there ever a point when you thought about joining their ranks as a racecourse bookie?
Impossible.
You never fancied it?
Impossible.
So when did you decide that you were going to have a serious go at a chunk of the punting pie?
Used to put a few quid on for some people years ago, some high profile names, and then Betfair came along and they sort of disappeared. So it was a case of me and, as you know, Simon Roberts, Dudley's son, we sort of joined at the hip, still, never a crossword. And we just decided, let's go and play on Betfair. And that was it, basically.
So did the advent of Betfair sort of cut out the middleman for a lot of these bookies that would sort of lay one for certain faces or back one for certain faces? Did that edge for a lot of people disappear then, do you think?
Well, yeah, I suppose they would have lost a lot of their leads. You'd see the faces going in back in certain horses, etc., and they would have lost that because they would have disappeared off the racecourse. But listen, bookies ain't really interested in them sort of people. If they could take tenors off of Joe Public all day long, they'd much rather do that. It's just we call it. People like to be seen to be a bookie. They love it. The lure of the chalk, as Billy Brown once told me what it's called. The lure of the chalk. Whereas then you get the professional bookies who are called, who it is their living. they're clever people. The Johnny Whites. If I had to have a share with a bookie, Johnny White would be my man. He knows the game inside out. Shrewd operator.
So you'd say the betting exchanges scuppered your edge for a bit, but then did they open up a whole new load of opportunities? Yeah,
it did. We had to adjust, that was all. I remember Simon and I, we went to... we didn't win for 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks, and we were scratching our heads, thinking like, why has this all drifted? Or why is this all shortening? But listen, there's only one way to learn in this game, and that's the hard way. And, that's what we did.
Well, up until a few years ago, I mean, even at places like Kempton on a Wednesday, you'd be stood there in front of a load of shivering bookies on an all-weather meeting, appearing to be talking into your newspaper before pouncing on one of them.
Yeah.
These days, we hardly ever see you. What happened there?
Understandably so. They didn't want to lay us anymore because everything we back shortened. But I understand that they don't like that. But I don't put up the prices, as I'd say. They make the prices, and everyone thought we was arbing on them. Total rubbish. Total rubbish. We took a view. We would back it at the same time on Betfair, and thankfully we're right more than we're wrong.
So is a lot of your business, is it hard work and knowledge, or is it cards being marked still, or is it a bit of each, or what don't you want to say?
Cards being marked.
Right. So you've made a living one way or another from bookmakers for years.
Yeah.
And what people can't see is that you've made a very good living. But there seems to be no love lost for them. Now, I've seen you vilifying bookmakers brutally on course and off course. There is that venom tongue-in-cheek, or have you mellowed?
Mellowed massively. Totally understand how hard it is for them. I now deal with every big firm trading desk, straight to the nerve centre of these companies, and within reason, they all play ball. You know what I mean? They get a very, very cheap mark of which way the market's going. Very cheap mark. And it is a case of, and everyone watching this will know, price is king now. Price is so king. It's come to a point now that people actually forget there's a man riding a horse. It's all about prices. Now, the big firms, they've reduced me back massively. They want the marks. They basically want them for nothing. There was a time where they'd let me have pretty much anything I'd wanted to get the mark. But now it ain't quite like that. But then, listen, they've got their livings to get as well.
So with the recent thing that Sky Bet and VC are doing, you bet want to win a monkey. Now, just trying to gauge the level of your business, if you could back a horse to win a monkey with every firm on Odds Checker, would that be enough?
I hope some of these firms ain't watching. No. It would have to be... listen, I'll name firms, I won't name names. But the likes of Corals, Ladbrokes, Hills, 365, Betfred, Absolute Gentlemen, Chandler's, they're all fair. You know what I mean? It is tough for them. I totally understand. Their expenses are phenomenal. It baffles me how they make it pay, to be fair. However, what these traders do need to realise is the fact that Betfair ain't always right. They mustn't let it govern them completely by everyone says it. Oh, there's £2 up there on the machine. You mustn't let that £2 govern it. Remember, boys, you are supposedly the professionals, the bookies. They are supposedly the professionals. I just think that they need to not to be seen so ruthless in how they... You've only got to look like winning before they close accounts. Just look like winning. I'm really fortunate that I have got the firms and they are prepared to listen to me, and I've brokered deals with them, and within reason we all stick within the rules. occasionally, you know, I mean, we won a few quid on more, and then I'd ask, you know, some other people to help me get bets on, you know, and likewise I'd help them.